And now, everybody, it is time that we are going to go and conclude this episode off with the grand finale. And what a coincidence of a grand finale we have here, because believe it or not, Nick is back with us to talk about a Family Guy related story. You remember last time we talked about Family Guy, right?
It was all about the lost pilot that surfaced, and now, in some bizarre coincidence, we're back both talking about the Oscars and also talking about Family Guy almost a year later.
Yeah, you turned out to me you're honestly my go-to awards guy and my go-to Family Guy. How the fridge did that happen?
One of those things.
Exactly. But this is not about a piece of lost media that has been discovered, however. What we are going to be discussing about is actually its future, where after all these years, finally, a fan favorite character is having his own show. Yes, Fox and Hulu have teamed up to announce that they are going to be ordering 2 seasons worth of a new series that's going to be starring Stewie from Family Guy. Now, we still have to wait a little bit, considering that they did order it for the 2027 and 2028 season, but still, this is a confirmation that not only are they going to have that Stewie spin-off series, but at the same time, they've also brought on board Seth MacFarlane to be a part of the show. Now, for those of you curious about what this Stewie series will have, my source here on Deadline actually does have a bit of a description of what the show is going to be about. So, just reading from my source here on Deadline, it states here, in the offshoot, after getting the boot from his old preschool, Stewie is forced to enroll in a new one that's not exactly top of the line. It's attended by a handful of kids he doesn't know and a 75-year-old class turtle with a half-cocked theory on just about every subject. Stewie's miserable, the other kids are miserable, and even the turtle is miserable, until Stewie begins rolling out his trusty array of devices to take them anywhere in space and time, turning every boring day at school into an insane and surreal adventure. Basically, Stewie is now going to be moving on to have his own Magic School Bus style series, with maybe a little bit of a hint of Rick and Morty, knowing how Stewie can be with his own experiments and his own adventures as well. And it's not just Seth MacFarlane who is also attached to this project, where of course he is going to be the voice of Stewie, but on top of that, we also got longtime Family Guy writer and producer Kirker Butler, who is also attached to the project. Now, it is also very important to note that when it comes to the Stewie series, it's not going to be like the Cleveland show, where the character is going to be leaving the main series in order to go and just be a part of that spinoff. So it's not going to be like how Cleveland left Quahog for the Cleveland show, and then once that was canceled, he came back. In this case here, however, Stewie will still be a part of Family Guy while that show is going to be on, but simultaneously, he's also going to be appearing in his own spin-off series alongside his teddy bear Rupert. Now, with that, and also there is another thing that's worth mentioning. Don't be surprised if in the spin-off series, you're also going to see more Family Guy characters making an appearance, considering that my source here also states that we could even see Brian making some appearances here and there. So don't be surprised if you'll suddenly find some of those familiar cameos in the show. Hold on a sec. Just need to let that out. We also got a couple of comments coming from Seth MacFarlane, first off, in which he states right over here, I'd like to thank Fox for this incredible opportunity, and I'm excited to start pretending that I'm collaborating closely with them on the show. We also got Butler, who made a comment in which he says here, I am honored and humbled that Seth, 20th Television Animation, and Fox have trusted me with one of the most iconic animated characters in the history of television. I have known Seth for more than 2 decades, worked with him on half a dozen projects, and I am hopeful this is the one where he finally learns my name. So yeah, apparently now we're getting a Stewie spinoff. So Nick, how do you feel about the idea of this? How do you feel that we're going to be getting a Stewie spinoff?
Well, you mentioned that it's not going to be like the Cleveland show where Stewie leaves the main show that he's from. He'll still be part of both, but that does make it odd to give him the spinoff, especially since he's already kind of the scene stealer on Family Guy. From the very beginning, he was pretty much everyone's favorite character. He was already dominating a lot of storylines, so to give him his own show feels like an odd choice. It almost sounds a bit like the Patrick Star show, although I assume however this show turns out, it's going to be better than the Patrick Star show. But you see what I'm getting at here, where you're basically taking a character who was already pretty integral and was well represented, and just giving us more of him. So I'm curious if this is just going to be a case of Hulu just trying to create more content, or if there could actually be a different direction for the character that's worth exploring, because as much as we have seen with Stewie, what we don't really see a lot of is him interacting with kids his own age. We see it from time to time, but it's usually not really the focus of the story. He's usually with the family or working off brand, so maybe if they can establish some interesting side characters for him to work off of, then that could be an interesting premise. And shows with Seth MacFarlane have surprised me in the past few years. When it was announced that Ted was getting a Peacock series, I kind of shrugged, saying, really, aren't we kind of past that? But the past 2 seasons have actually been probably even better than the movies that they did. And I really hope that they do Ted season 3, even though they probably aren't because of budgetary reasons. They're doing a movie, apparently, like another Ted movie instead. But, I guess I'm cautiously optimistic, although I don't know how necessary it's really going to be to have a Stewie show.
Is it going to be a Ted movie? I heard it's actually like, I don't know if they're going to maybe they'll continue the Ted series, but from what I've heard, they're going to be doing, they're also doing an animated series of Ted, and it's going to be set more in the present, where they're also bringing back Mark Wahlberg's character, and I think even bringing back Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that they're doing an animated series. I also heard the report that they were considering doing Ted 3, but they also said it would be like a multiverse movie, so I don't entirely know what that means, but they're definitely going to try to do more with the Ted franchise in any case.
Yeah, all right. I understand. But to go back into the Stewie spinoff, like, I will say now, I do get why they want to do that show. I feel like it definitely does make sense that if you want to go and give like another spinoff to a Family Guy character, you might as well go with Stewie, considering he is not just possibly the most popular character in Family Guy, but like one of the most popular animated characters on television. So in that regards, it does, it does make sense to go and like give him like the big spotlight, even though like it is true, like you said, like throughout Family Guy's history, whether it be in the earlier episodes or even nowadays, Stewie like he does get to be the main character in several episodes. So like it honestly feels a little bit redundant, or maybe like they have an idea of like trying to separate that, where Stewie will still be there in Family Guy, but he won't be as much of a main character as he used to be. So that could be the case. Like I do get it. But then again, I can't help but feel like when it comes to this idea, it's kind of like 2 decades too late in a way. Like, it's safe to say that nowadays, yeah, like Family Guy is still on TV. It's still going strong after all these years, but its prime has definitely passed. I can't help but feel like if this were like 2 decades ago, like if this were announced in 2006, people would go crazy for it. Like people would like be ecstatic. They would be like, it would be one of the most anticipated shows of that era, especially with how big Family Guy was, and like Stewie was still like highly popular, especially being known as like the what the deuce evil baby and stuff like that. But nowadays, considering that they, now that they're announcing it for 2027 and 2028, I like it kind of feels a little too late. Honestly, like for me, when I heard that, it makes me question is there still an audience out there that would want a Stewie spinoff. Like, even though they're already having like 2 seasons, they ordered 2 seasons, like, is it really going to be enough for people who would want to have more Stewie? Like, would they want more of that Family Guy style content where now they want a Stewie spinoff feature? Like, that honestly, I really do question. But then again, I'll just go and say now, I remember talking to a friend of mine about this, and funny enough, apparently he told me that this is the exact same comment that I said about the Patrick Star Show. And yeah, as you mentioned, the Patrick Star Show doesn't necessarily have that good of a reputation, but then again, it's still going on today. It's still, it's still releasing more episodes, and apparently it still has an audience. So in terms of like that kind of viewership, like, I was proven wrong with the Patrick Star Show. So maybe there is the same thing with the Stewie spinoff. Maybe there is an audience out there, like, they're still very loyal to Family Guy, and that they're willing to go and like add Stewie into the mix, and they want to watch some new episodes just with him. So I guess that's going to be a factor where we will wait and see. But in terms of the series itself, is it going to be worthwhile? Is it going to be something that, that could add in something that we've never seen from the original Family Guy? I don't know. And I think, honestly, the more I think about it, the more that you mentioned how Family Guy already puts a significant spotlight on Stewie. It's just like, okay, we're just going to have, it's just going to be an extra Family Guy, but, now it's just with Stewie, and they're going to add a few kids and a cynical turtle. Like, honestly, like, hearing that description kind of makes me think like, okay, so are they bringing in that same turtle in that Leo movie? Like the one that is voiced by Bill Burr. But
I was thinking about the turtle that Stewie's thought in one episode, the one that he said looked like a nude Larry David.
Yeah, it could be that. I don't know, but honestly, it's just like, there could be some ways that maybe they'll find an idea that could really bring it into a completely different direction than what they would do with Family Guy. And I mean, as I said, like, just from the concept, it does sound like they want to make like an adult animated series version of the Magic School Bus that might have a little hint of Rick and Morty. But maybe they'll have an interesting idea in there. Maybe it could work. But for now, I just feel like this is an idea that is going to take a lot of convincing for me to know if this could work. Because again, like, Family Guy already highlights Stewie quite a lot, even to this day. And just the idea of it, I feel like it's just something that would have worked 2 decades ago when Family Guy was like at its prime in terms of popularity. Like, maybe people would have wanted that then, but now it's just, I don't know, like, that's just a matter of like, I'm not like, it's hard to really think if people would, but then again, there probably is a group of people that I have no idea about that would not only go and watch the Stewie spinoff, but at the same time, they would make it popular enough where it could go on to have like a 3rd and 4th season and stuff like that. Who knows?
I think it's also to draw more people back into Family Guy, because even though that show still has a following, there are definitely people who have tuned out and aren't tuning in like they would have 20 years ago. But if they see that there's a new Stewie show on there, they're like, oh, I remember Family Guy. I haven't watched that in a long time. Maybe I'll jump in here, because people are more inclined to jump into a new series rather than to jump into one that they haven't watched in several years. So it could be part of that, just keeping the Family Guy brand going. And, and Family Guy remains very popular. In YouTube compilation videos, those still get a lot of views. Family Guy is still one of the most memed shows, so it still definitely has an audience, even if they're not necessarily watching every new episode every week.
But do you think it would work though? Do you think like if the Stewie spinoff series would work, do you think that would also reattract people to go and watch Family Guy again?
I don't know if it would have people going back and watching older seasons that they haven't, but I think the success of the Stewie show is going to largely depend on A, if they can give him compelling supporting characters to work off of, and not just have him, just carry the entire show on its own. And also just to not just feel like an extension of Family Guy. I feel one of the reasons that the Cleveland show wasn't as successful was because a lot of the humor just felt like retreads of what you would see on Family Guy, as opposed to something like American Dad, where that was still cut from the same cloth of Seth MacFarlane's humor, but it did distinguish itself tonally, the kind of stories that they told. And while there were parallels between American Dad and Family Guy, both had very distinct tones, and certain jokes that you'd see on American Dad you wouldn't necessarily see on Family Guy, which is more cutaway joke heavy, whereas American Dad, it's more of a farce show. So I think if the Stewie show could distinguish itself, it could be a success.
Yeah. That does make sense. I get what you mean. Like, it's all like a major determining factor, but like, I will say at least with Stewie, it does sound like the plot of it is a lot more different than the typical Family Guy formula. Oh, it looks like, sorry, I just got a bit of an announcement. Apparently I got a little extra raid. Ooh, that's good. That's pretty exciting. Thank you very much, Mars Girl, for the raid. Although I will say we are close to the end of the podcast, unfortunately. But hey, it'll go and end off the stream on a high note. And still, again, thank you so much, Caitlin, for the for the raid there. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. Yes. I will say, at least with the plot itself, it definitely does sound a lot more different than what they would go and do with that typical formula that Seth MacFarlane would go and put out. But I will say, though, that still, I think it'll all depend on the comedy. I think it depends, like, if the humor can differentiate itself, then that's going to be the big determining factor. Because, like, if you're going to be watching these shows, you want to go and watch it because of the comedy. You want to go and have a laugh. And if it's just about the same as what you would go and get in Family Guy or something like that, then I don't really see it having a bit of a leg up at that point.
Also, I'm curious, you say it's getting a 2-season order, but are they going to be 26 episodes per season, or is it more like 10 episodes per season? Because in that sense, it's really more like one season when you really think about it, even though they call it 2.
That is, honestly, that's a very good question, because even my source here, even they're not sure. It states right over here, the episode count for Stewie has not been revealed. I heard it's slightly less than the 15 episode per season the Legacy 20th Animation series are producing under the current Fox deal. So it could be just like what you said. You could actually be right on that, where like it feels like they ask for 2 seasons, but it feels more like just one. But in that case, I don't know, maybe they'll just do like 12, or maybe they'll just do 10, but I think it remains to be seen.
We'll see.
Yeah, ultimately, I think we will see. And hopefully things are fixed right now in the chat wall, because I did see that apparently there was a bit of a technical difficulty that was going on right after the raid occurred. But now I would like to go and ask you all in the chat wall, what do you all think about a Stewie spin-off series? Are you guys on board with it? Are you guys a little hesitant on the idea? Let me know what you all think. All right, let's see now. I'm honestly not a big Family Guy fan, so I honestly don't know how to feel about this. I honestly have to agree, it feels like it's 2 decades too late. If it premiered in the 2000s during the height of Family Guy's popularity, people would be on board with it. But nowadays, it feels like Family Guy has really passed its prime, and not what it once was overall, so I do think we'll have to wait and see. All right, fair enough. Did we ask for a spin-off series of Stewie Griffin? I am not into the Family Guy show, including the memes, but I enjoy the other stuff from the same studio, like King of the Hill. Why not do something original? Why not make an adult animated series project like Nim, The Hobblepots, and How to Be Black that are still in development from Fox? I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see on those. Let's see now. So there's going to be a Stewie spin-off series. Okay, I guess, but it's 2 decades late. I mean, Stewie already has episodes where he goes to adventures in his Road 2 series with Brian, as well as his time travel episodes, not to mention his own episode where he kills Lois and becomes president, and even his own song. But then again, so does the Cleveland show, and that got canceled. All right. Honestly, I don't care. The only 2027 animated series I'm anticipating for is Cars Lightning Racers, and probably the ones from the Helliverse seasons. Maybe also whatever Glitch show comes out. I'm not really interested in Family Guy. Lightning is being reprised by Owen Wilson, and I'm happy to see these characters again. All right, let's see. Stewie Griffin is one of my favorite Family Guy characters of all time, and having one of the most memorable moments in Family Guy's history. But that's a big but. I think it could potentially be fun if it's done right. I think it's one thing that the Stewie show needs to do is cut down the cutaway gags. Let the show do its own thing. Overall, what's your guys' favorite Family Guy joke? Do you have a favorite Family Guy joke?
Well, if I'm going to say one just off the wind, probably, I'm taking it. I'm taking this couch. All right. We're going to take it apart and take it out. We're making it harder than it sounds. That's probably the one I reference the most.
Yeah. Honestly, I think trying to think back, I think a lot that I enjoy is like the ones with Cleveland, like especially the one like where like his house gets blown up and suddenly he's in the tub and then is about to fall down. He's like, no. Like those were definitely fun.
I gotta stop taking baths during Peter shenanigans.
Yeah, that or like I do enjoy also the meme where like everybody has their hands together and then Seamus includes his. It's like no, not you, Seamus. Poo. That's also fun. I think I'll go with those for now. Let's see. But I will say though, like going back into that comment, I will say I do agree with him that there is that likelihood that if done right, this could actually work. It could actually be a lot of fun. But we will have to wait and see, and hopefully they're not going to retread the same kind of jokes like making like all those like those Family Guy cutaways. All right, I think I'll read one more, and that should be good for today's episode. Anyways, honestly, for me, it's a pass. I mean, it's Family Guy. Didn't like them then, didn't like them now. However, I won't stomp on the parade and say cater to the fans. They'll have something to be hopeful. I know how some spin-offs can be for people, especially now that the series that's almost 30 years old. But I could see this going on, as well as something like The Fairly Odd Parents when they made their second reboot with A New Wish. I mean, hey, I certainly won't like it. I know some people might find something to be intrigued of. All right, that's definitely fair. And with that said, that should do it for this Oscar spectacular of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Nick, thank you so much for joining me on this. This has definitely been a blast of an episode.
It's been a blast again. Thank you so much for having me on.
And if there are any other places that people would like to go and follow you, where can they find you online?
I'm on all social platforms, either as Nick Spake or Cartoon Contender, and I'll be covering awards and animation year-round at my site, cartooncontender.com, and you can also visit there if you want to learn more about my trilogy of books, Bright and Shiny, A History of Animation at Award Shows, which are all available now on Amazon in both physical form and in Kindle.
All right, awesome. By the way, I've always wanted to ask, have you ever thought in the future to have an audiobook version of it?
That's definitely a work in progress, but yeah, it's just something that we definitely want to get off the ground, too.
Ah, nice. All right, glad to know that it might be happening.